Well, thank you very much for inviting me to be in this project, Ila and James. When I met you last year in Liverpool, I just thought this was an amazing project, and I really wanted to be part of this. So when you invited me, I said yes, of course. How much do I have to pay to be there? It was great. Thank you for letting me be part of this. And well, what I'm going to be talking about today is othering in ELT materials, how to deal with it. It is, of course, well, one of my main interests. Let me start with an anecdote about this. A couple of years ago, I was working with a Mexican company, writing a book, and it went great. It was a very good product, I think. But there was this moment in which I was talking to my editor about a lesson, and the lesson was about linguistic diversity in Mexico. The book was really localized. That's why I really liked it. So the lesson was about linguistic diversity. So I thought it was a good idea to have well, like a conversation between a Mayan kid and someone else. My editor asked me a really interesting question. He asked me, "How are you going to justify that the Mayan kid speaks in your lesson?" And I think that was quite shocking. Uh, and I found that question really problematic at different levels because, well, first of all, if we are creating a book, if we are writing a book, and we don't believe that the audience of the book are going to be able to learn, to actually accomplish that goal, why are we writing the book in the first place, right? Second of all, I thought, and I told him that I had written other lessons in which other people were involved, like a Mexican chef being interviewed, or like a Mexican filmmaker talking about their project. And he didn't ask me the same question. So that of course that brought up the issue of who is a legitimate user of English, right? And I think the ELT industry in general, the ELT world, have certain expectations of who is a legitimate user in this case. And these expectations are about how you your social class, your accent, your age. I'm not going to talk about age much because Elo has a great presentation about it later on. But these are the expectations that the in a certain legitimate user. You need to be part of a certain social class. And again, this speakerism is not just about the native speaker being the role model. It is also about, well, the L2 English speaker who can actually an English user, right? And so this ideology of the ELT industry is, of course, portrayed in ELT textbooks that are like the pamphlets of the ELT world, basically. And this ideology is reproduced, and they legitimize certain legitimate users, but not everybody. And it is this game of pronouns, right? Even if current ELT materials are trying to portray different people and they claim to be multicultural, they are still addressed in the third person. I mean, when they talk about a tribe in the Amazon or some other group in Asia, they are always they, right? It is still written from a very subjective perspective, and that subjective perspective is a choice, basically. Someone made a choice, and someone in the ELT industry, in the ELT publishing companies, they are making these choices, and they are somehow erasing or misrepresenting these people, right? So this was my long introduction. Now I'm gonna tell you what we're gonna be doing today. We're gonna be talking about, well, we will first define othering. Then we're gonna talk about Spivak's 3 forms of othering. Spivak is one of probably the best known thinkers about othering. Then we're gonna see examples in ELT materials, and at the end we're gonna discuss how to deal with them. Yep. So, what is othering? The first definition is from Thornbury. He wrote this in his famous A to Z in ELT book. Othering, well, he actually used the letter O for othering. Othering is the way members of one social group distance themselves from or assert themselves over another by construing the latter as being fundamentally different, the other. And this is from ELT, right? I mean, I think it is still a very ELT perspective. But let me show you another definition. This is a definition by Schwalbe. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this well. But Schwalbe comes from a different discipline. This is post-colonial studies. Post-colonial studies are in charge, of course, or they are interested in dismantling all these colonial powers still oppressing a lot of countries and people. So he defines othering as the process whereby a dominant group defines into existence an inferior group. So if you notice, the definitions are quite similar, but they have 2 key aspects that I want to highlight. First, that Thornbury uses a social group, whereas Schwalbe uses a dominant group. Schwalbe says that they define into existence an inferior group, whereas Thornbury just mentions a different group. So in Schwalbe's opinion, othering has a very important dimension, power, right? The one that defines is the powerful, the one in charge of, the one in control, right? So the other is not able to define who is who in the game. He's always defined by the powerful. I hope I'm making myself clear here. And that is othering, someone deciding who is who in the game, basically. And especially in ELT books and in the ELT industry, unfortunately, I think we have that problem. Spivak's, Spivak is, I told you, is one of the best known thinkers about othering, and she came up with these 3 forms of othering. She says that there are 3 forms of othering, 3 ways in which othering is pursued. Power is the first. How the powerful represents themselves and make the other the subaltern, right? So that is the powerful, the one in control, representing or constructing themselves as the powerful. And they, of course, and in the second form, they represent the other as the inferior. How the other is attached to negative, passive, or problematic characteristics, right? That is the second form of othering. First one is power, the second one is inferiority, and the third one is knowledge. How knowledge and science are normally connected to the powerful and away from the other. So the knowledge comes from the powerful, from the one in control, right? And of course, these 3 forms of othering intersect each other. They are not just, they happen, the 3 at the same time. For example, if you see a movie, if you read a book, the othering is happening in 3 ways. The 3 forms are being constructed. I'm going to add a 4th form, it's not mine, actually. I mean, I didn't come with this idea. It actually comes from discourse analysis studies. Silencing voices. Also, normally the powerful silence the other in this case. And we can see this in our textbooks. Again, when we see that even if the textbooks claim to be multicultural and all the adjectives that you want to mention, they still represent the other in third person, right? They never let them say something. And this picture was very famous a couple of years ago. If I'm not mistaken, these are congressmen in the United States deciding on maternity leave, especially for vulnerable groups like Black women and Hispanic women. So, as you can see, they are not represented there. And this is how our textbooks look like sometimes. Someone discussing a topic that is not theirs and that is seen in a very privileged perspective. Now I'm gonna mention a few examples of this. These are examples that I took from textbooks. I'm not gonna mention the name of the textbook, but all of these textbooks claim to be like really multicultural and trying to have this welcoming approach. But at the same time, they are still representing the other as inferior, in need of help. For example, this is the first example, and it's one of my favorites. It says, "The man who moved mountains." Greg Mortenson hates to be called a hero, but in the mountains of Pakistan and Afghanistan, that's what people call him. He has helped them to be more than 60 schools. He has helped them to build more than 60 schools, and this has changed the lives of many young people, especially the girls. Thank you, Greg Mortenson. But what first brought a white American man, emphasis mine, to this remote part of the world where tourists rarely go? This is the best example of othering, I think, in ELT materials. If you see, we can see the three forms of othering here. We see the powerful being constructed as a hero, as a savior. We see the inferior being constructed as a remote place. Remote. Pakistan and Afghanistan are remote for me because I am in Mexico. But for someone in Iran, for example, or India, Pakistan and Afghanistan are the country across the border, right? So this remote adjective says a lot, and it portrays this perspective, right? And also that the third form of othering, that the knowledge comes from the powerful, in this case, a white American man, right? So Pakistan and Afghanistan are mountainous countries where tourists rarely go. I think there are more things to say about Pakistan and Afghanistan, right? Second example I'm going to show you. The great Eskimo vocabulary hoax. First of all, the word Eskimo, right? To be fair, later in this text, it is mentioned that they don't like to be called Eskimos. They like being called Inuit people. But in the title, you write Eskimo, right? I think that is already saying a lot. Like you want to be called in this way, but I'm gonna call you the way I know. And if you read this short text, this is just like the subtitle of the text. Blah, 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 how many words do Eskimos have for snow? And it says, in 1940, Benjamin Worf, an American linguist, said they have different words for snow because they see snow differently. I think it's a great example of the third form of othering, in which knowledge comes from the center. Knowledge comes from the powerful in this case. And yeah, I mean, if we really want to know how many words the Inuit people have for snow, why don't we just ask an Inuit person, an Inuit woman or man, how many words do you have for snow? Oh, we have 12, 20, 91. I think it would be a lot easier to address this issue. The next example, it's from a text about Sherpa guides in Nepal. Explorers started to go to the Everest in the early 20th century and needed to rely on local people. Explorers. Who is an explorer here then? Because if Sherpas are guiding them, so I assume that Sherpas explored first, right? I mean, that is kind of obvious. But why do they say that they started exploring in the early 20th century? I mean, here the explorer is someone who comes from Europe or from the United States in this case, or from one of these countries. And Sherpas, they're not explorers. They are not given the status of explorer, right? They are just guides. And so again, the powerful constructing themselves as the one in control. And later on it says that they don't have much in common, but they often become lifelong friends after climbing because they know they couldn't have done it without them. So again, it's like, in this case, they are not even worth a friendship unless they help the explorer, right? So I think it is not a nice way to portray Sherpa guides. The fourth example is volunteering in Africa. I think this example might not be very problematic, but I just wanted to bring up the issue of volunteering. Volunteering is a very wide topic in ELT materials, and a lot of textbooks talk about volunteering and going abroad and help. And so it's again portraying the white savior. And if we play this game of the English-speaking community going and save others, the other. So what if our students are in that position, in the other position? What if this book goes to Tanzania, right? I mean, how are they gonna feel? Are they gonna feel they need to be saved? It is also really complex. The last example I'm gonna show you is my favorite because I am a Latin American, and it says Gustavo Dudamel is one of the best in the world orchestra conductor. But we are not in New York City, London, or Vienna. We are in Caracas, the capital of Venezuela. The third form of othering is there. How knowledge can only come from the center, can only come from the one in control, and it cannot come from one of these countries, from Venezuela, for example. Why not? I mean, what's wrong if Gustavo Dudamel is the best, right? Now, okay, I'm gonna tell you 3 ways of dealing with it. How can I deal with it as a materials writer, but also as a teacher? I mean, a lot of times we have to supplement our materials. How to do it? Well, I just have three points. The first one is, let us speak. Let the other speak. Let's find texts, videos in which the other is speaking, is giving their own opinion about that issue, right? That way we can become models to follow, and not just continue following the native speaker model, but following everybody's model. Like I can be a model, everybody can be a model to follow, and I think the other needs to become a model to follow as well. And finally, well, so we can discuss our own issues, right? it would be great if the Inuit people can have a say in how many words they actually have for snow, or if the people in Pakistan and Afghanistan are happy with Greg Mortenson. If you just go to YouTube and look for Greg Mortenson on Pakistan, you will find a very different reality of what this textbook is saying. People from Afghanistan and Pakistan might not be very happy with Greg Mortenson, but again, if you only get one side of the story, you're going to believe that side of the story, and you're going to continue thinking that the powerful is the one in control, and you're going to just have that vision. So what we do, what I did, and well, together with James as my editor, and about this book, about Rise Up, the book that you're going to buy after this talk. The example activities with Las Patronas, that by the way is the organization that is receiving this money. I use their Twitter account to develop a lesson out of it, and I'm just gonna read the first tweet. It says, "We are a group of local women who got together as we saw an opportunity to help our migrant brothers and sisters. This is how I try to deal with this. I am letting them speak. They're speaking in first person. They become a model because at the end of this lesson, learners have to write tweets about an organization, and they follow their model. So they're models to follow. And they are discussing their own issues. It's not a New York Post article about migration from Central America, crossing Mexico and getting to the United States. It's people that are actually living that reality. And I think that's, in my opinion, again, in my humble opinion, that's the best way to deal with it. Letting the people that are involved in that issue have a say. I'm going to also mention a couple of examples from the previous Rise Up book. For example, this one about working life, right? It comes in the first book. And it's just having someone from the working class speaking in first person and having a say in what his life or what her life is about. Normally, a lot of textbooks, they don't talk about the working class. Gray and Block have this great article about how the working class have been erased from textbooks, not just English textbooks, even history textbooks, and how they have a say and they would like to have a voice in order to just to be heard, you know. So I think it's very important to listen to other voices. The last example I'm going to tell you about is Life on the Farm. Also comes in the first Rise Up book. So go and buy that Rise Up book too. It is also very, very good. Life on the Farm, listening to people that come from different backgrounds. We normally in textbooks, in mainstream textbooks, we tend to see urban life, and we rarely get to hear or to know about rural life. And of course, I think a lot of us have taught in rural contexts sometimes. So it would be great if we get to hear those voices, that our students see themselves there, and they are not othered. They are represented as the ones who can actually accomplish speaking English. You know, I think that is crucial. And I'm going to finish with this quote by Paulo Freire. It says, "Authentic education is not carried on by A for B, or by A about B, like in our textbooks, but rather by A with B, mediated by the world. A world which impresses and challenges both parties, giving rise to views or opinions about it." So we live in a complex world, a world in which there's not just one side of the story. I mean, we need to like Bruna was saying, we need to feel the other. We need to get together and start listening to other voices. And I think that is a key aspect of education. So these are my references, and thank you very much. I haven't seen the chat much. If there are any questions, you can you can ask me now or send me an email, follow me on Twitter, and I'll be very happy to talk to you, right? So I'm just reading the chat to see if there are any any questions.
Thank you, Sergio. It was very, very enlightening. And I think your presentation is really a very good example of what not to do with course books when we want to make them inclusive. This other is very commonly made when we try, when authors or publishers or material designers try to include minorities, and fall in that trap of the othering. So talking about them, about the others from their perspective. I think this is a very good example that you gave, or what not to do and what to do when talking about minorities. Thank you very much. Very, very relevant. I think there was a question.
Is there?
I'm
going to stop.
Yeah. Okay.
Is there a question?
So let's wait and see. Count to 5. That's the 5-second rule.
Just.
We, of course, can answer any question that comes up. Okay, a list of references they are asking. So maybe we could publish that in our website, or if the person wants to send the email to you, you can send the presentation to that person. Okay, so you can talk privately. And of course, if there's any other question, we can answer them in the end. Okay, thank you very much, Sergio. Very, very insightful and inspiring talk. As usual, I'm not surprised because I have seen you speaking before, and we are very glad that you were
very much
in that with us. Thank you.
Thank you.